Our issues, our voices, our views. This is politics. Our issues, our voices, our views. This is politics in black. What's happening, family? It's Sunday. We are back. We are live for another broadcast of Politics in Black, brought to you by ADOS Los Angeles. I'm feeling good today, Friday. This is going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one. We finally are in our lane talking about one of our favorite things, the elections and politics 2020.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the election. We're going to talk about the process of running ADOS candidates. But before we get started, once again, people, I'm only one half of your hosting team. My name is Chad Brown. Seated across from me, she is a reparationist. I
am a reparationist. Friday is here. Hey, on a Sunday. How you doing? Welcome to Politics in Black.
Absolutely. So as I was saying, we're going to talk about election 2020 today. We have one of the candidates from a hotly contested race here in Los Angeles joining us. And then we're going to zoom out. We're going to go to the national scale and talk to ADOS candidates running in different localities, one who has won his race and another who is running for the U.S. Senate. So I'm excited. We got another good one Friday. Let's go.
Let's go. So, look, today we have from Los Angeles City Council, the CD10 Council District 10 race, we have candidate Grace Yoo with us. Candidate Grace Yoo is not new to this. This is, I think, her second run for City Council, and you all may remember her, folks who are here locally in Los Angeles, our Fight to Save Black LA town hall that was hosted in Leimert Park. With us and some other black organizations. Grace Yoo was one of the candidates that showed up to the community live and in person. And she is again here with us today on Politics in Black. So ADOS family, please welcome candidate Grace Yoo.
Welcome, candidate Yoo. Once again, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you and speak. I'm so happy to be here. The Fight to Save Black LA Forum was incredibly well attended, and it was tense in there. There was some major electioneering going on.
We get fired up. Yeah, we get fired up when we're talking about the community and our peoples. But we appreciate you showing up, candidate Yoo. I mean, coming down and talking directly to the people, being here on Politics in Black, that's what's important, and that's what we need to see from candidates who are seeking our voting capital. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And so we are reparationists, right? It's such a term you don't hear. You think Reconstruction, you think like 1870s, but here we are in 2020.
Modern day.
American descendants of slavery go by the hashtag ADOS on social media. And in the reparation space on the federal level, we have HR 40. HR 40, the last time I checked, was at about 150 co-sponsors at the federal level, which is certainly progress. And I know SB 1083 went from maybe about 5 to about 20 votes, on the Senate side. And then we have the California bill, AB 3121. And so the question for us is not so much, do you support reparations? It becomes, do you support reparations? And then on the federal level, would you be a voice to lend to monetary compensation in addition to a package of what I would call reparations benefits in different spaces like
Absolutely.
Business, education, so on and so forth?
Absolutely.
Well, just like you're aware, the Japanese American Citizens League spent decades seeking reparations. Of course, it makes more sense that we would, of course, provide that for ADOS as well, because it is a harm. I know Native American tribes also need that kind of reparations.
But that's separate. That's separate, Grace, right?
Because that's sovereignty.
Okay.
And Indigenous is sovereignty versus, our claim, which it's a little different. And so we appreciate that.
Yeah. Don't disagree.
The Shinnecock in me appreciates that, but it's definitely a different claim.
But it's just the fairness aspect of it and saying we've done it before, we can do this.
Absolutely. And just so I'm clear, Grace, you are of Korean descent. Is that correct?
Yes, that
Okay.
is correct.
Okay.
I was born in Incheon, and my family moved to the LA area just before I turned 4.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Okay.
you know, we're hyper focused on lineage here and lineage specificity, so that's why I asked that question, because obviously the people, we just want to know who we're talking to and who's going to be representing us. So in that same vein, you are running for the open seat that was Herb Wesson termed out in CD10. CD10 is about 250 residents, about 25% black, which is an overrepresentation of black population in LA. We're only about 8-9%. So you came down to fight to save Black LA and talked a little bit about your plans for homelessness. Could you expound on that specifically for Black people? Because here in LA, while we're 8-9% of the population, we're 40% of the homeless and 52% of homeless families.
And according to Galprin, I attended a Zoom where Galprin gave a report, our city's controller, and he said since COVID that number has even gone up. So we are very curious to hear, like, in this space, like what it is that you want to focus on.
I know that's part of your day one plan, but if you just could talk us through what you are planning.
Exactly. Look, to keep people in their homes, to provide rental assistance is a need, and we've got to provide it. Otherwise, we're going to have more people who are homeless and on the streets. And that happens when you don't save RSOs, when you build rent-stabilized ordinance units. So in the city of Los Angeles, we don't have rent control. We have something similar, and it's called an RSO. So we've got to save these units that are much more affordable, because what's happening right now is the gentrification wave is coming in and knocking down these very precious RSOs and building units that cost 2 to 5 times more than what an RSO unit is costing at this time.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up that issue of gentrification, because we definitely want to talk about that. We're here at Morris Studios in CD10 in Leimert Park, and Leimert Park looks nothing like it used to look. Like 10 years ago, it was a completely different place. And now what we see is a lot of, Negro removal disguised as urban renewal. So we're being displaced out of our traditional neighborhoods. And I know CD10, it encompasses a lot of our traditionally Black neighborhoods like Leimert Park, Baldwin Hills, Crenshaw Manor, basically South Central, or I'll still call it South Central. I know it's not PC anymore. But could you talk to us a little bit about your plan for stymieing the gentrification and the displacement of ADOS Americans here in Los Angeles?
And and that's why I'm someone who was opposed to SB 50 and its progeny, 1120. We need to have local control. We can't let Sacramento come in and decide everybody should be able to build up. When you give that green light, it means all the quadplexes, duplexes, these go away, and big, huge luxury units come in. And what's funny is we talk as if we're building affordable units, but there is no enforcement.
Yeah.
So supposedly we're going to have 5% of the units be affordable. But
economically, that doesn't even work for CD10, because I think in terms of median income, the median income for Los Angeles, the last time I checked, it was maybe $57,000. But I know in CD10, in terms of income, there's a significant portion of the population in CD10. I think it's like 30 or 40% of the population that falls significantly below that 57,000. So, unless
it's actually 43,000. I just looked it up, 43,000.
Unless there are more jobs like coming into the community so that people can sort of live and work, in their community, how do you propose even resolving the sort of disparity? Because at 5% coming in, you're still displacing a significant number of people.
You are, and you've gotten rid of the RSOs. And there were more RSO units than the 5% that are going to be built. So if we were just really honest about what's coming in and not just pretend like we're doing the right thing, we would be in a better place. We do a lot of pretending over at City Hall, and I'm coming in to bring in truth and reality checks. When we might say, okay, these new units going up, they don't have parking. The city says we want everybody to take the metro. the reality is metro ridership has been going down for 10 years. We spend billions of dollars in investment that people don't use. It's atrocious. And, then they talk about, well, it brings jobs. And what we'll do is we'll do local hire. But and I know that there is no local hire, because the reality is within these contracts that say we're going to have, livable wages and agreements so that everybody can survive, we'll also do local hire. And then there's a little carve out where in the back door, no one has to actually hire local.
Well, no, if they keep the same employees, that's like the loophole that people actually don't talk about. So I'm glad you're bringing it up, because that's something that we have, as ADOS Los Angeles, we have pushed the mayor on. We have pushed on the idea of contracting and closing that particular loophole, because all the folks have to do to not enforce that is to not bring on new hires. If you just work with your old crews, you don't have to hire anybody.
Yeah.
And that's the get around that, no one really talks about. And so how do you propose trying to enforce that to get the numbers up? Because I think in terms of African American contracting, just in general, it's just low. It's significantly low.
Yeah.
Well, because most of the contracts go to the same people. And that's because we don't have a really true bidding system.
Yeah.
It seems like, you're wink, wink, or you get insider information. I sat through meetings, not because I was there for that particular reason, but I'm there fighting to bring in a park into the community or whatever reason. And then I hear about this person trying to get a contract, and I'm finding they're saying that they had the lowest bid. And guess what? They didn't get the contract. And I'm like, how is this possible? Aren't we supposed to go to the lowest bidder?
Yeah.
And if you actually made those bids stay instead of increase, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Right? So they say we're going to do this for X amount. But at the end of the contract, it's X amount plus another 30%. It's like, wait a second. The contract was for X percent. Why should we give you 30% more? What does the city get? Nothing. We lose. I want to make sure that when we're making agreements, that there are very little loopholes so that the taxpayers don't lose out, that those of us who need the affordable housing, that we get it.
Absolutely.
And you talk about how the city wastes money. My gosh, when it comes to permanent supportive housing for the homeless, to build one unit in District 10 costs $700,000.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
That's
Exactly.
Absolutely ridiculous.
It costs more to build a single family house, that's like 1,500 square foot or less. It costs less than $700,000. And these one bedroom apartments are not 1,500 square feet. They're not
1,500 square feet with marble floors and high end. Anyway, meanwhile at the ranch, let's transition a little bit into SB 31, which was a state initiative for peace officer decertification, which actually lost at the state legislature earlier this week, or it's Sunday, it's a new week, so that would have been last week. But Senator Bradford intends to actually present the bill again. Is that a bill that you will support when it comes back?
I think the fact that we allow police officers to leave one police family and move to another city and join when they got black marks and were, basically kicked out of the job is horrific. We should know what their track record is. And if you've got a black mark, then you should not be allowed to be hired. So I definitely support Senator Bradford.
Okay.
So as a city council member, I've posed this idea. I think the first time I posed it was to Holly Mitchell, and she thought it was interesting. But can the city actually, does the city have the authority to possibly bring in a third-party underwriter that could get in and actually assess the officers and then remove the high-risk officers, particularly in light of this bill failing last week? Is that something that the city has the power to do?
I would think the city has power over LAPD because we hire and fire the chief of police. You know, the mayor appoints, but the city council members say yes or no and agree to that decision. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the chief has final say, police chief has final say over what happens to his officers. And so city, to me, the council members would have the authority to help legislate that. Now, it doesn't mean we say it and it's done, because it will take lots of discussions and it's going to be a complex type of need. But I believe it's doable because we can say these are standards that must be met. Mm-hmm. You know, and really one simple way to bring more peace into our peace officers would be having more female officers. Studies have shown that women police officers are far less prone to escalate a situation. So we would have more officers following guidelines where they would be guardians and not warriors.
Yeah, I think part of what we'd like to see as well is male or female residents of CD10 who were policing CD10.
No, I agree with you. Mm-hmm. You know, we can make sure we do a better job. I've heard from LAPD recruiters that the African American percentage has definitely dropped, and we should do a better job of going out and recruiting.
Absolutely. I want to transition back to contracting, city contracting real quick, Grace. One of the things we met with Mayor Garcetti a few weeks ago, and one of the things we proposed to him is mandating in the city's contracting and bidding process that any firm or any business seeking or responding to an RFP of the city show that either they have a 15% equity investment with or partnership with a ADOS-owned business, or what you traditionally colloquially call a black-owned business, if we weren't able to give preferential treatment to local black-owned businesses. So would you support mandating a minimum level of ADOS-owned business participation in city contracts and bids?
You know, I understand what you would like. I'd like to know I'd like to know if we even have a system in the sense that LA City is really bad at keeping track of data, and maybe they do this purposely. And I say this because when it comes to housing, they don't know how many Section 8 housing they have, which is crazy. They don't have this on a computer where you can pop up data. Mm-hmm. And I think they do this purposely. They don't know how many are RSO'd. They're really antiquated and obsolete. And so we need to bring everything up to par. You would think because businesses have to pay business taxes that the city should know who owns what, and, you know, ethnic breakdowns, whether they're mom and pop, what dollar amounts. And all of these pieces are around, but they're in different sections. So like the business section would have this, the tax section has that, the certificate of occupancy or the building safety has this. So it's really hard to say, yes, I'll do this. I am in theory behind this, but I don't know what we look like as a city, because getting basic information is very difficult to do.
So do you have a tech plan to account for that? That's something. So I am a budget. I come from the neighborhood council system. I'm a budget representative for Empowerment Congress West area. I was a budget advocate with the city. One of the main concerns I know of the budget advocates was the idea of siloization within the city and the things that you're talking about, not being able to access data. I think Galprin has done a really nice job as controller of trying to make the some of the city's data accessible, but do you have a tech plan or a tech proposal to help start pulling that information together. We know the mayor has his equity person. I think her name is Brenda Shockley.
And we made a proposition on data collection to the mayor.
We made a proposition on data collection. So I'm just curious to know if you have some sort of tech plan to pull that information into a useful manner as part of your platform.
That actually didn't make it onto my platform, but as far as government accountability and transparency, I think that encompasses the data aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Right? You can't have any accountability or transparency if you don't know where you are. You got to know what our metrics and stats are before we can say we did better or worse or what's going on.
Yeah.
And they keep hiding the ball. I want everybody to know what our city looks like, and the city budget. It's this thick. My folder
yes.
is literally 3.5, 4 inches, right? And they don't make it easy.
No, especially once you have to start going to the schedules. They do not. Not at all.
It don't make sense. And so one of the things I said we need to do if we want accountability by our elected officials is to increase funding for the city controller so that audits can be done in real time. The fact that you don't get an audit except for like 5 years, maybe 10 years after the fact is really bad. Mm-hmm. And city ethics, when it comes down to elected officials who are running for office or people who are in office and how they spend their monies, you won't know that someone did something wrong except for 3 years after the fact.
Yeah.
Right? And that doesn't work.
Yeah. No, I mean, you touched on a lot of good points. And one of the other things we talked about the Mayor Garcetti with was that data collection issue and having some specificity based upon lineage when we're talking about data, because ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery. So a specific lineage amongst what would be considered the African diaspora, right? So we are a unique tribe here. We are the tribe that built this country. We are the tribe that lived with the cost and the accrued disadvantage of slavery and Jim Crow. So that's ADOS. So what we talked to the mayor about was having specificity, just as you have specificity among the Asian community in Korean and Japanese and Chinese, et cetera, having that same sort of specificity amongst the quote unquote black community and being specific to ADOS when we're talking about contracting. So would you support that sort of specificity in city data collection?
I would definitely, because for ADOS to be able to get funding to the descendants, you're going to have to know, right? Yeah. You're going to have to know your lineage.
Yes.
You need to know. And if we don't know, you're never going to know. So someone has got to start collecting it. Thank goodness we've got the genealogy out there, and we've got U.S. Census tracts that show us this
Absolutely.
information, and you can find your lineage that way.
Yeah.
And prove it.
We have one last thing, I think, because I don't know how much more time we have with you, but Proposition
We'll keep
Proposition
going.
16, which was formerly ACA 5, that it still is it's a hot topic. That particular state legislation was opposed by June Yang Cutter, who's running for California Assembly District 77 down in San Diego. Current state assembly members Steve Choi, Philip Chen, Tyler Dieppe, and Vince Fong. We found that the Japanese community did support that legislation. We found that Pacific Islanders did support the legislation. The Chinese community, not so much. The Chinese community really pushed back. It's sort of tough and surprising that the pushback was so out of balance in that way, and we actually we tried to make this a point of conversation. I think that sometimes you can have understanding between different cultures and different communities when you come into a room and talk, but unfortunately
yeah.
That didn't happen. Steve Choi said no, and June Cutter down in San Diego, she didn't want any part of it either. But what are your thoughts about that particular proposition? As reparationists, from our perspective, if you have the reparations and it's done the right way, you kind of don't need bills like this. But until we get to that point in our society where we're ready to really fully repair the wrongs at the federal level, we kind of have to do this piecemeal legislation.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is what it is. But what is your position on Proposition 16?
You know, the whole concept of affirmative action is something that I support. Affirmative action is how people of color have been given opportunities. And I do understand there are significant numbers of Asian Americans who are opposed to affirmative action, especially in the educational realm. Mm-hmm. But I'm someone that says you can't pick and choose. It's one of those situations where you've got to be consistent.
Yep.
And I truly do believe affirmative action is needed for all the wrongs that have been committed in the United States over centuries.
And just as a point of clarity, Grace, because language is important here at Politics in Black, affirmative action those were plans that were targeted particularly at American descendants of slavery. So we don't want to use language like people of color, because that just opens it up to bring groups in that did not suffer under chattel slavery and institutional legalized Jim Crow. So I'm sure you understand, we talked about lineage specificity. I'm sure you understand the importance of specificity. So just as you talk about affirmative action, that is something that particularly is of interest and of benefit to American descendants of slavery.
You're absolutely right about ADOS. Look, but don't forget, there were actually people brought over from like the Philippines, and the Chinese Exclusion Act. We had, land laws that kept Asian Americans from also owning land, just like African Americans were, right? The racial covenants.
Mm-hmm. Now, see, this is why I think we need to have a town hall. I really do. We have some intentions to reach out to Judy Chu at the federal level, but I really hope that we can take this conversation offline, because I think that in part of our just development as a country and our understanding that different people have what I call different American stories, when things hit points of contention like what I've seen over ACA 5, I think it is important to bring it back to where is this disconnect? Let us have some sort of cultural conversational exchange so that we can understand a little more than MLK. Like that seems to be like the standard of understanding, and it is a limited experience in a way. And so thank you for sharing that.
Yep. And Grace, one last question before we have to wrap up here. As you know, ADOS are 8 to 9% of the population here in the city of Los Angeles, but we're about 40% of the incarcerated here in the city. What is your plan for lessening those disparities and making sure that we're not being criminalized and targeted by the Los Angeles Police Department?
So there's one department in the city that I think has done a really good job, and that would be GRID, Gang Reduction and Youth Development. If we would actually fund it more fully, then I think we can help youngsters stay out of the system. Remember, my first job as an attorney was representing elected children. I ended up going into that because I really wanted to work with at-risk youth. When I was thinking that I was going to probably be a DA working with minors so that we can get them on the right path, I found out 70% of delinquency or kids who were getting into trouble came from dependency. So 70% of the kids that I ended up taking care of, representing them and being an attorney for them, I felt like the earlier you can get to kids to, enjoy reading, getting tutoring early on so that you can keep up and not be left behind. Because once you're left behind, you don't want to go back. If you don't know how to do your simple addition, if you can't do reading in second and third grade, you are going to be behind fourth, fifth grade, and by the time you come to junior high, you're like, got better things to do and hang out with friends that are going to get you in the wrong place.
No, education is important, absolutely.
Education, prevention. So that's why, for me, making sure we get money so that we do it early on and not afterwards. Like the fact that we spend something like $13,000 per student per year, and we spend closer to $70,000 to incarcerate someone is outrageous.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We agree.
Well, Grace, we're out of time here, but quickly, just give the people your website and how they can get involved in your campaign. If interested, how can they support you?
Well, I'm really thankful that Fight to Save Black LA endorsed me early on, and I'm grateful for ADOS's support. Folks, I need you. We need change. I am that fresh water. We've had a stagnant one for 29 years. Time to sweep it clean, fresh water, change, and be part of the change. I'd love an $8.46 donation or anything would be great. My website has lots of info, is Grace Yoo, CD10.com. So that's GRACEYOOCD10.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I am just saying thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for being
here.
All
right, thank you for being here. And
for those, talk to the community.
Yes, indeed. Those of you that want to follow Grace Yoo on Twitter, that is also her handle, Grace YOOCD10. That is her Twitter handle. Listen, Governor Gavin Newsom, we need folks to call
Gavin,
this
you
man.
watching?
Governor Gavin Newsom is stalling from signing the California reparations bills, AB 3121, to make American descendants of slavery whole for the sins of slavery. So we need you to contact our governor. His phone number, people, 916-455. I'm sorry, 916-445-2841. Again, 916-455-2841. Monday mornings, let's start ringing his phone and say that we support AB 3121. We're going to a commercial break, and we will be right back.
We'll be right back, family. And we are back, fam, for the second segment of Politics in Black. But before we jump in, I want to let the family know one more time, you got 3 days left. That's 3 days left to the end of this month to go and fill out your census. And this is important, fam, because the census is power. And we only get the chance to fill out our census every 10 years. The census results impact the amount of funding our community receives, how our community plans for the future, and our representation in government. So this year, over 1.5 trillion, that's trillion with a T, dollars will be allocated based on census results. So please, family, time is running out. Go today to www.2020census.gov and complete your census. If you are ADOS, if you are American descendant of slavery, check the box for Black African American, write in American descendants of slavery. We gotta get counted, y'all.
Indeedy.
All right, so on to the second segment. I am elated to bring this first guest to the show. You all know him from the ADOS community. He was born in Parkland neighborhood in the west end of Louisville, Kentucky. This neighborhood was also the birthplace of Muhammad Ali, and it shows in this candidate. He's got that spirit in him. But Jacory Arthur is currently a professor of percussion studies and director of the ADOS Center for Social Justice at the HBCU Simmons College of Kentucky. He is an artist and roster member of the Inner City Muslim Action Network. In 2019, he became a BME Genius Fellow, using his cash reward to help open Parkland Plaza. And what's most important, I want you to know about our next guest is you got to call him Councilman-elect now, because he won his race.
He did it like we want to do it. Close the primary down.
Absolutely. So coming to the show, please give a big welcome to Councilman-elect Jacory Arthur.
Ooh.
Peace, love, and justice. I'm glad to be here with you all.
Peace, fam. Thank you for being here on Politics in Black. We love you here. We celebrated your win. I had some libations on the night that you won, man. So thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. And look, we're also going to bring in, and you guys have appeared together, we're going to bring in Tamara Johnson-Shealy, born and raised in Chatham County, Georgia. You know, she was a nail salon owner for 10 years. She worked as a licensed tech for 18 years. She is already a legislator. I need people to understand that. She knows how to bring legislative actions to bear. She was a co-sponsor for HR 1957 to improve tax policies within the nail industry and the beauty industry. She helped advocate and introduce Georgia Senate Bill 64 to strengthen the continuing education standards for licensed professionals, beauty professionals in Georgia. And she has worked, pushing safety with OSHA. This woman is already, as far as I'm concerned,
she put in work.
She is. Senator Tamara Shealy.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Soon to be senator. Welcome, Tamara.
Hey, good evening, family. How are you? Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for being here on Politics in Black. We want to talk to you because your race, it's all eyes on it right now in Georgia. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me.
So Jacory, I want to start with you because you are, if I'm not mistaken, now the youngest person ever elected to Metro City Council, and you are the first person in history who is identified as ADOS to be elected to an office. Am I correct there?
You are correct. The youngest, the blackest, some people say the prettiest.
I told you had that Ali in him. I heard that Ali come out. So Jacory, I know you had to move mountains there in Louisville to get that win. And we want to let any potential ADOS candidates around the country who are thinking about running, they're looking to you as an example and to a model. Can you talk to us about that campaign, what you had to do, and how you were able to galvanize the vote to come out and support you?
Well, what a lot of people have to realize when you run for local office is that it's important to have a resume established, an experience established, a rapport established with the community before you run for office, because so many people run on fumes and hopes and dreams. And I ran on the experience that not only I lived, but the experience that I help other people live through some of my arts organizing work, already hiring people, through some of my education work, already teaching people and advocating for policies and for change. So if you already have that under your belt, when you try to run for political office, it's kind of just that much easier because you can live on what you've already gone through and what you've already done. So many candidates talk about issues from a third person perspective, but when I ran, I talked about them from a first person perspective because I'm not only advocating for people, I'm advocating with people. And more importantly, I am the people that I advocate for. So it's important to establish that as you run and just have some genuineness to your candidacy and people know who you are before you even decide to run and go into office.
And, we always talk about the wealth divide within our community, and running for office takes money. Can you talk a little bit about some of your fundraising efforts and just strategically, how you had to work, if you will, the ADOS dollars to get you to the win?
I kind of positioned this almost the same way I would a career as a musician. if you do your job when you have a performance, then you're going to naturally, organically grow your fan base. So everywhere I went, I did my job in terms of teaching people about issues, but more importantly, listening to the issues that they experience maybe across town in a different neighborhood that I had never been in before, never lived in before, never worked in before. So as I did that throughout the half a year that I campaigned, it kind of almost rolled into the divine moment known as this what some people call civil unrest or social justice movement. Because when I announced, I was already talking about ADOS, already talking about reparations and the way that we're treated in this country, in this state, in this city. But as soon as it became trendy, as soon as we saw the BLM movement start to gain more momentum than it ever had in the past, what I was saying became 10 times more relevant. So I got to a point really where when the pandemic was in the thick of things, I didn't even ask for money. I didn't solicit donations because I knew people were struggling. But because I had already been preaching and teaching that message of social justice and specifically justice for ADOS, I was casted into the forefront as a face, as a leader, as someone who was kind of the professional in this field, someone who was the informed person to speak from these experiences. So what that did was casted me into a frontline worker, a frontline advocate, a frontline fighter. And I did not have to even ask for a single cent between when the pandemic started all the way up until when the primary happened in Kentucky. And because I had earned media, because I was already a voice, because I was already doing that work, we just organically fundraised. We raised over $40,000 in a couple months.
That's powerful.
Awesome.
That's powerful.
So, Tamara, let's bring you in here because your race is really unique. I think you announced early. You know, we were at the conference in October 2019.
That's where I met you, Tamara.
That's where I met you.
I remember you.
That's where I met Jacory. You know, and you wanted to connect with people, ADOS people who were specifically running in different races. And so you announced early. And I know compared to some of your competitors in your race, your fundraising from an ADOS perspective, we might say that fundraising has been a great effort because we understand our economics. However, compared to some of those other contenders who have larger purses, you have to be smarter and more strategic with how you move and how you run your campaign. So talk to us a little bit about how you are almost having, like I say, the ADOS life, but you're running this ADOS campaign.
Oh, yes, I absolutely am. So, you know, my campaign is fueled by volunteers. We have people that have been phone banking, and I want to shout out to those that have been phone banking with us since January. We started, I knew this would be a long road, and I'm glad I came out of the gate as early as I did back in October, because I knew this would be like the tortoise and the hare. We would have to walk this thing out every single day. Every single day it would be an inch at a time, and that's literally what we've done. Every dollar has been used wisely. We now have we have some radio ads. We have 4 radio ads in some very rural areas. A lot of these rural areas don't have the access to the internet, so they're not going to be able to get social media the way we can just access our phones, and it's relatively even expensive in some of these areas. So they still listen to radio, just, you know, the regular radio stations, these local radio stations, and they still watch these local television channels. This is where they're getting their information from in the rural market. So we're just trying to be as strategic. Yard signs are a big to-do down here in the South, so people have like that quote-unquote swag in their yards. So we've been making sure we had yard signs. I know it's, you know, it's different, really different down here. So the little things are working. Okay. The little things are working.
Okay. And Tamara, when we had a conversation at the conference in Louisville, I tell you, it actually blew my mind to learn you were running for U.S. Senate, and it, in many ways, in many aspects, it made the ADOS movement even more real and visceral for me, because I'm like, hey, we running ADOS people for Senate. We here, right? We coming, right? But I've heard you say that, you know, because your kind of motto was you taking reparations to Washington. And I love that. But you've been called things like a racist for saying things like that. Is that correct? Can you talk a
I am
little,
getting,
can
y'all.
you talk a little bit about that opposition, if you would?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So right now, Obama has endorsed Raphael Warnock in this race. And I'm telling you, I was telling Friday, and my apologies, guys, that I'm not on camera. But, I mean, I'm literally functioning now off 4 hours of sleep. I am exhausted. I'm down to just fumes right now. They coming at me, and I need this movement to get behind me, y'all. I mean, I'm almost 12 months in, and I need you to carry me over the finish line. And I sincerely mean it. I need ADOS to jump in, and y'all going to have to really help carry me, because this has become so heavy. And Raphael Warnock has spent so much money that, I mean, I was just texting somebody in ADOS who has family in Augusta, and I'm like, I really need you to kick in. And he said, he done bought up everybody down there. Mm-hmm. So I'm feeling like we're gonna have to. We're in the fight of our lives right now, and I really need the movement to really jump in and help me in these last 30 days.
Yeah, sounds like you fighting against big money, so we need big people power. We need the people to tap in.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I hear you. Jacory, coming back to you real quick. In District 4, because I think it's really interesting, and I'm so proud of you, brother, and what you've done and what I know you will do come January 1. But in District 4, you got like a 52% poverty rate. All of the socioeconomic indicators that we see, where ADOS is at the bottom, and you see that really reflected in your district. Can you talk to us about your plans, like your first 100-day plan when you take office? I've heard you talk about kind of the MFDEs and how you want to take those on.
That was a lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you talk about, like, in the first 100 days, what is on the top of your list?
Well, for starters, we need to have an organized body of Black elected officials. It kind of has been something that's been falling by the wayside in terms of what our elected officials are supposed to do or their role in Black politics, but really just Black social consciousness and justice across this city. But when I take office, we'll have 7 out of 26 council members who are Black, and specifically who are ADOS. Mm-hmm. That will be the highest amount of Black elected officials we've had at that level in the city ever. And we need to take advantage of it. We need to take advantage of the fact that in 2020, and by then 2021, we have more access to information than we've ever had. We have the data, we have all of the articles, we have all of the studies. Now, my question is, what are we going to do about it? Because I've already realized that we haven't done anything about it before, when I was younger, when I was a kid, and before I was born. So now what are we going to do about it? And there's actually a pretty extensive Black agenda that a group of Black leaders put together here in the city that includes the Urban League, that includes our Kentucky Alliance Against Racism, that includes ADOS Louisville, that includes Simmons College of Kentucky. There's about 50 co-sponsors who added to this Black agenda, and our city has yet to adopt it. So when I join office, I'm going to formalize this Black caucus, make sure that we have an organized body for politics, because we can't meet the Black community's needs if we don't meet as a Black elected official body. So I'm going to make sure I prioritize that so we can have an actual political priority in Metro Council at the local level. And once we have that caucus, that organized, that formal body, there's going to be a whole new level of accountability for us as elected officials. And that includes adopting this agenda. And the agenda specifically outlines education, housing, jobs, criminal justice. It has several different aspects to it that are going to be incredibly important for us to move forward. One example is the fact that, according to our studies and the way that redlining happened in Louisville, there are 22,000 Black families who should be homeowners right now, but they are not. Wow. And that is going to be a top priority for me, as we know that wealth is really in your home and equity is in your home. So I'm going to make sure that these 22,000 Black families get exactly what not only they want, what they are owed, but also what they need. Otherwise, we won't exist in the city that we built.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, Jacory, so when you have so many members of the city council, like where you feel you can galvanize and just build up this momentum, do you or have you faced resistance from our own? Because I know as ADOS, I mean, the reality is we deal with that as advocates for reparations, as being reparationists. We deal with some of the harshest critiques from our very own community.
Absolutely. It's an issue that I ran into before the campaign, definitely during the campaign, and I know when I'm in office, I'll run into that issue. And oddly enough, one of the issues is prioritizing us and our own ADOS people feeling like we're excluding everybody else, which makes no sense to me because when you look at Black Louisville, a quarter of the population, but 3/4 of homelessness, 3/4 of prisons, 3/4 of school suspensions, evictions, how can you not prioritize us? Even if I wasn't ADOS, I'm willing to say that I would commit to prioritizing us because we have the biggest need. And if we have the biggest need, we need to have the biggest, boldest policies. And that's why it's important to have a Black caucus, which would actually be the third caucus of Metro Council. We have a Democratic one, a Republican one, and we need to have a Black caucus. Because I truly believe if we can address ADOS issues at the local level, we can address anybody else's issues. Anybody else's issues will be incredibly easy to deal with because ours are the most complex, ours are multi-dimensional, multi-generational, and they have existed since this city was built. And as I said earlier, we built this city. Yeah. ADOS or slaves used to come to Louisville ahead of the white people who owned them to soil the land, to make sure they're getting the harvest ready, and to build log cabins and to make sure that there was an establishment, there was a settlement for the masters to come in and set up shop and really reap the benefits of all the seeds that we sowed. So I'm here to make sure that that's something you never forget and that we atone for it. There are several institutions in this city who have their hands around the pot of money and the wealth that exists and that Louisville runs on that have never atoned for the fact that they were the largest owning slave families, including the Speed family that has their name on our largest fine art museum, as well as our School of Engineering at the University of Louisville, including the Brown-Forman family, which, if you know the history of Brown-Forman being one of the largest whiskey distilleries in the world, that Jack Daniels distilling was taught by a slave named Nearest Green. Yeah. So we need to atone for that. And we need to atone for the fact that you can't hide through philanthropy anymore. I don't care how much money you give to nonprofits. You need to be atoning for that by giving us high-paying jobs, by making sure you're giving us that land back that you stole and are still trying to take through gentrification, and atone for it through direct payments, which is a larger issue on federal reparations.
Absolutely.
All right. I know we have a hard stop with you, Jacory, so I want to thank you.
Yeah.
You are an inspiration, to say the least.
Absolutely.
I think you know, for those of us that really want to make change, in every interview that I've read and everything that you almost say, for things that you share in terms of what's happening in Louisville, you are something that we all really, in terms of leadership, should aspire to be. I want to give you the closing words, and then tomorrow we're going to get into you and this Loeffler battle, because to me, I don't know about Warnock. We'll talk about him, but you and Loeffler is where I want to go. So final words, Jacory.
Thank you all for holding it down, as always. It's interesting, these past few months, I've been exposed to media from here, across the country, around the world, and no one understands our issues in the context of our lives better than ADOS Media, better than the show I'm on right now, Tone Talks, Breaking Brown, Be the Power. Everyone who is doing independent media from an ADOS perspective through an ADOS lens, you get it, and you're making sure that we understand not only the now, but the before, the now, and the after. And we know that the after really will only happen with reparations and a Black agenda at ADOS101.com. I'm also excited to say Yvette, Tone, and I have a project that we'll be rolling out and sharing with everyone very soon, and it will include an action that we need your help with. So please stay tuned for that in the announcement.
You got it.
We got you, bro.
Always.
We got you.
Thank you, Jacory.
Peace, fam.
Mr. Jacory Arthur. Tamara.
Still there with us, sister?
I'm here.
All right.
Warnock. Okay, so we probably are going to bring some of the people that are behind him into this show, because your race, and I've said this to you offline, to me, your race is the epitome of the ADOS experience. You come from an ADOS background that involves sharecropping. You have Kelly Loeffler, whose family has 3 generations of farming. I believe she's the 4th generation of this farm that was handed down through her family. When her family, if I am correct, arrived here after emancipation, from Prussia, and they were able to immediately tie into whiteness. This woman is a WNBA owning team.
She has an interest.
So she's an owner. She's not, an employee. You're someone who just finished law school, and congratulations on that accomplishment. You just finished law school after doing 18 years, as an owner and operator in the beauty and nail business. Like, those are such different perspectives. And when Obama came in and got behind Warnock, one of my contentions, and I posted it on Twitter, was the fact that, Warnock comes out of the house of MLK. And we as Black people have to stop and ask, at what point do we become part of the status quo? And even though he comes out of MLK's church and he's a pastor, please tell us whether or not there was any outreach to you to do any vetting of you prior to his throwing his hat in the ring, because I don't think he needed to do that. What I think needed to happen was that the support that he has should have come to you for vetting and then gotten behind you, because you were out in the front very, very early in this race.
Yeah, and that would be the right thing to do. This is Georgia, and this is Georgia politics, and that's not how it works here. So Raphael was anointed. The party chose. He was the chosen one. Let me go back to the dynamics of the race, and we'll come back to Raphael. So there are 21 candidates in this race, and just from the sake, from a math perspective, if all things were considered equal, 4.5% for everybody, right? So 21 candidates is a lot. We have 8 of them that are quote unquote Democrats, 6 Republicans, Green Party, write-in, Libertarian, Independent. You got everything under the sun in this race. 9 of us are Black, 12 of us are white. 12 of them are white. Kelly Loeffler, honestly, is not my competition. So if you see me, I don't really reference her a whole lot, and I'll tell you why. Brian Kemp appointed her.
Yes.
Republicans don't like her.
Yes.
Republicans don't like her. She from the very beginning, they did not like the process, because Brian Kemp, when he was getting ready to appoint someone to that position, he opened up the for people to put in their applications to, their resumes to him, and she put in hers like the very last day, and she was selected. So it was like a setup. Everybody knew it was like he had already knew who he wanted. So she didn't come to the table with Republicans liking her. So Kelly is not my competition. Warnock is. Warnock is because he is the pastor at Ebenezer. He will carry a lot of the Black vote, because we tend to, here in the South, our pastor is everything. The church leads beyond your just leads here in the South.
But isn't that almost in a way a conflict? And that's also why I think that he and the powers that be in terms of Black power in Atlanta, that is also why I feel like they should have come to do some vetting of you, because I almost feel like that's almost an abuse of power, if you will. Because it's almost like the whole actors being presidents thing. I don't even know why that's a thing. Other countries don't allow that. People have popular support, which is it displaces the democratic process. So what are your thoughts just on the imbalance in power of him moving from a pastor of one of, the most famous churches, Black churches in the country, to going into, a senatorial race?
Well, I think it's definitely unfair. But this is Georgia. You got to remember, the governor here stayed in office as Secretary of State while he ran for governor. So he counted his own votes while he ran for governor. Y'all don't know this is Georgia.
Oh, my goodness gracious. In terms of your strategy, I know you are, you just said you put dollars behind the rural vote. I know that when other people come into the race late with money, you said Warnock has come in and he's just bought people. you know, and you say you need ADOS, and I am a monthly contributor. I've been, since Tamara said I need money, I've been trying to support her as best as I could. But what do you need from us specifically to take you over? Because if we need to get up some volunteer circles, we need to get the volunteer circles to do the phone calling for you. If you need a couple extra dollars, we all need to go on and find, I think I found $9, 9 ones in my purse the other day. We need to go on and get the 9 ones, you know, out to you. So for your last push, what is it specifically that you need from your ADOS community?
If I could have some postcard writers, at this point it's going to require direct mailers.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're not phone banking, we got to reach them directly. So direct mail, radio, getting on social media and hammering him, saying, like I said, Kelly, honestly just not concerned about her. I'm really not, because I know that, you know, the dynamics is working with these other Republicans. They're going to pick her off, and she's not a favorite anyway. So I'm not really too concerned. But Raphael, we have to stay on him. We have to stay on Warnock. So even just getting on social media and hammering, you know, telling the truth about the fact that he's standing in that pulpit of Dr. King, standing in his shoes, and you don't have a black agenda, nor do you talk about reparations. How dare?
Yeah, no, that's facts. You heard the candidate, fam. We gotta tap in. She needs some writers. She needs some support. So tap in, fam, if you're listening.
That's right. All of our organizers that participate in our organizers events, for all of the people who have chapters, for people who are thinking about chapters, and you don't, it's you and 2 other people, and you do not know what to do. Tamara Johnson-Shealy needs your help in the final push. She needs postcard writing circles. Tamara, please give the people your information so that they know how to get in contact with you, so we can get this going. I know I follow you on social media, but I want people to really know where they can find you.
So the website is Tamara, Tamara, 4 FOR, and then Georgia spelled out .com. Y'all know Twitter ain't my favorite, but I'm on there at Tamara Shealy. Instagram, Tamara Shealy. Facebook, Tamara Johnson-Shealy, and Tamara for Georgia. So you'll find me. If you put my name in, I'm going to come up on all social media.
And folks can donate on your website, Tamara?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please, y'all, keep them coming. Like I said, direct mail, I'm buying postage. We got to get these postcards out. Radio, like I said, these rural markets where people, you know, this radio is affordable. I can do a lot in these rural areas because, you know, South Georgia is thick. We're down there. That's where we are. So I need to be concentrated in these rural areas. I spend the money on social media and yard signs. I'm doing no more traveling. I just got an invite to come over to Columbus, Georgia tomorrow. I'm like, nope, I'm not spending another dime on travel. All the money is going into what will get us direct voter contact.
Absolutely.
So every dollar has been spent wisely.
And Tamara, we've only got a few minutes, but I did want to ask you about something that I saw in Black Enterprise just a few days ago about an ex-cop, an ex-Atlanta police officer or Atlanta Police Department officer who said he worked with land developers to arrest and evict black residents in what was the Bedford Pines neighborhood. Are you aware of this story? Are you aware of this revelation here?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, my question then to you would be, we're going to get you in the Senate. We're going to get you there. We're going to get you that seat. What would be your plan for, because I'm sure you're aware of the issues in the local police department, what would be your plan for policing, and how can we get more community members into policing our own communities and stop this terrorism that's driving us out of our communities intentionally?
You know, I've been really focused on reparations and the bigger agenda of getting that to Washington.
I'm not mad at that.
I really have. I haven't, to answer that question, I would hope to see more community policing, more police that live in the neighborhood, that, you know, more so of us policing ourselves. But I'm telling you, my focus has been on getting our reparations agenda to Washington. So I have not been in the local news at all.
I ain't mad at that
at all. I'm functioning now on 4 hours of sleep today.
Absolutely. No, you got the right focus. I'm not going to take your focus off reparations ever, right? So.
We did have a question from the chat on YouTube, and people are wondering if they can actually cash app you.
Sure. Tamara, the THE. Make sure you put the in front of it. The Tamara for Georgia, all spelled out.
So it's THE TAMARA.
For FOR, Georgia spelled out. Yes, the Tamara for Georgia.
The Tamara for Georgia for the Cash App question. If you want to get the money in today, if you want to get the $9 in today, Tamara's gonna take it today.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you.
We buying postage right now, y'all. We buying postage. A bunch of postcard stamps.
Thank you, Tamara, for again being here. We're gonna rally troops behind you. We know you're David fighting a Goliath, but we're gonna put a lot of ADOS stones in your slingshot, and so we're gonna give you some weapons to fight with.
Yes, and we need it because we got Tim Scott, God bless him. You know, I try not to talk about our people, but we have him thinking it's an accomplishment, and it is. I don't want to take anything away from him, from going from the sharecropper to the Senate in one generation. But when we start talking about that multi-generational look, you don't think Loeffler is your competition, but the fact that she could take land that was left by her grandfathers to fund her college education, we need to understand our position here. And again, your race, I think, is the epitome of what, you know, the ADOS race looks like, Absolutely. What it looks like for us. And so we are behind you. Yep. We stand with you. Whatever you need us to do, you know you have my number. I will advocate. I will tweet. I have already put my money where my mouth is. We support you 150% and wish you a successful bid as senator for the state of Georgia.
Absolutely. You taking reparations to Congress, you're my candidate. 100%.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, ma'am.
Let's get you elected. Let's get you elected. Yes. So, fam, tap in.
Yes. Thank you for being here with us today. I don't know what our closing remarks are.
That's my candidate. Jacory's my candidate. I'm figure out about Grace Yoo. I'm gonna read some more.
Okay, and we are reparationists. You know, you can find us second and fourth Sundays of every month, coming to you as Politics in Black. I am Friday Jones.
I am Chad Boogie Brown.
All right. Count yourselves in the census. Make sure you get your mail-in ballots. Make sure you know the initiatives. And we will see you in 2 weeks? I think 2 weeks.
That's usually when we try to do it, about every 2 weeks.
2 weeks. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much, ADOS fam.
Thank you, fam. Peace, reparationists.
I was saying call news.